Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is going to be a video response to the Gentleman Gamer. Basically talking about game preparation versus improvisation. And it's probably no surprise to any of you that have watched a lot of my videos that I am a high improvisational GM. Or at least that's what I kind of think of myself as. Depending on how you define preparation and how you define improvisation, you could find yourself in the middle or to one extreme or the other. The kind of preparation work that I like to do is to know the setting inside and out. I like to have some ideas on the big NPCs, especially the ones that relate to the campaign. I like to know, the setting, like the gods or the kingdoms that are nearby, things like that, that is outside of the player's, ability to really affect, but things that might show up in the background, to give texture, to make the setting feel real. If there are a war between two rival kingdoms that are next door, that might affect prices, or that might affect, refugees coming in, and things like that. I don't like to do a ton of prep with that stuff, but I do like to read up on the setting, or if I'm making my own setting, to really put a lot of work into that. As far as the actual game sessions go, I'll use my current campaign as an example. My Labyrinth Lord game. My goal for this campaign was to do more game prep than I normally did. Just wanted to try it out, see how it would work. It is a mega dungeon campaign. It's just a big dungeon in a small town, and there's like a city that's pretty far away, but they've been there once. So for the city, I really have done no prep work whatsoever. It's just a nefarious city out in the middle of nowhere, far away. The town, I have designed the town, I've populated the town, but I haven't populated with stats. It's mainly just names. And as the campaign goes on, if they interact with certain NPCs and I, act them out, or something happens that is noteworthy, I will jot down notes by those NPCs, so the next time that they bump into them, there'll be some history there. I'll know how to act them out. If I improv that the guy has one eye, I'll jot down one eye, just so I remember things like that. So I have fleshed out the town, what all the businesses are, what the names of the businesses are, who works there, where they live, etc. The actual dungeon itself, all the outside buildings on the top of the hill, I wrote at least one line of text for each one. Now that might sound strange to some people, but I would just write, what creatures are there, is there any treasure, and the rest of it I just improv on the fly at the table. Sometimes I will add in things, other times I will deduct things, if things I feel it will help or hurt the pace of the game, the tone of the game, what's going on, the choices that the players make. So in this campaign I've done prep work, and I've improvised too, so I'm somewhere in the middle depending on how you define prep work. The Tabletop Titan did a video about never improving combats. I do that all the time. Doesn't bother me. I don't have any issues with that. I think it's actually, I would think it's better. I'm definitely, when it comes to actually at the table, I love to listen to the players. I like to listen to their thoughts and their paranoid delusions. And if you really listen to what they say, you can often find better ideas than you could ever come up with in your wildest dreams. And what's nice about the table is there's the energy. The energy at the table is sort of a resource you can use as a GM. It's a giant brainstorming session, especially if they're trying to figure out what's going on. If there's some enigma in your game that you know the quote-unquote answer to, and they don't, they're going to throw out some wild speculations. And a lot of times you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, that kicks my idea's ass. The solution just became what that player just said, which is cool in another way. I don't think I've ever told a player that, but I think some of them have figured it out. And what's cool is when they actually find what's going on, they're like, yes, I was right all along. You know, I guess it's kind of an illusion, but I would never pop that bubble. I totally let them bask in that glory, you know. And I guess that's kind of like the behind the scenes stuff that might take away some of the magic when you're a player, because GMs have the ability to do these things, you know. But if they're still having fun, they don't know any better, you know. They don't know that as a GM I was listening to their ideas and I totally five-finger discounted that idea, stole it right out of the air and put it right into the campaign. And as a highly improvisational GM, you need to do this, because the thing with inspiration is it's not a steady flow. It's not a long-distance jogger that has the same pace. You know, it's like a sprinter where it's up and then it stops. It comes at random times. But for some reason, I think because I've done it for so long, whatever neurons fire when improving is done, I think I've improved those pathways or whatever so that I can really do it almost at will. There's just a certain energy at the table that just, I don't know, I just take and use. Ander, Wood WWAD, talks a lot about if you prep a lot of things, you don't need to use that energy at the table to make stuff up, because you have a lot of stuff. And while I agree to that to a certain degree, and again, it depends on your definition of prep work, I really love to be able and have the freedom, it's all about freedom, I think, for me, to go wherever the players want. Doesn't bother me. We will go wherever you guys want. The only time that I've ever not wanted that to happen was when I designed a city campaign. And again, I had lots of prep work in the city, and it made sense as far as the story went. They wanted to leave the city because it was getting too hot. And, you know, that campaign is like, oh, really? And it kind of showed me that you can put all your eggs in like a certain area or a certain basket. If they want to leave, I mean, do you really want to be the GM that says you can't go anywhere? We've talked to Alikov about social contracts where you can say, okay, guys, this is a city campaign. Please don't leave the city. And I guess I could have done that at the beginning of the campaign, but you know, there's pros and cons for that too. The freedom of choice, I think, is the main reason why I like to be a highly improvisational GM. I can give you other examples of games that I've prepped. I ran a Werewolf and Vampire the Masquerade crossover game. It was mainly a vampire with just werewolves tacked on, mainly because two players didn't want to play vampires. And I had to learn another set of rules, you know, to let them play, but that's a different story. Anyway, so in that campaign, I used my 3x5 cards in a little box, and each NPC had a card. If they were part of an organization, they got grouped together. You know, if they were a certain faction or whatever, I just try to organize it as best I could. And same thing with that, if they would bump into an NPC that I had only written, you know, the stats out for or text out for, then I would put more notes to it. So in a way, playing the game is preparation if you take good notes. It's preparation that happens organically. You almost play test out your preparation, if that makes sense. I've been taking audio files of my Labyrinth game, and as I'm listening back through them, sometimes I'll get other ideas for the future. So taking notes is important, and I've talked about how recording your sessions can also be important. So I've talked about, you know, doing prep work. I'll go back to my Labyrinth Mega Dungeon campaign. I have reached the end, or most of the end, of my prep work. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of this campaign generating encounters, setting up groups, that sort of thing. And every room had a number or letter, and it was associated with what was in that room. And I've reached the end of those prep notes in this campaign. And so basically I'm at the point where I really should do more prep work. And I probably will to a limited extent. I will probably have a line of text for every room, maybe in this level of the dungeon and the next one down. And that'll take a while for them to dig through. But what I'm trying to get to is that I get to these points in campaigns, and this isn't GM burnout, because that's a different entire monster of its own that luckily I'm not suffering in this campaign. But I get to the point where I don't have much of a desire to do prep work. I get to the point where it's the night before, it feels like work, I have other things to do. Do I really want to set time out? And to be honest, I think maybe YouTube, to a certain extent, has sort of competes with my prep time, I guess. Where I want to watch a bunch of videos that you guys cranked out, and they also have to do prep work. And I'm sure I could do both at the same time, but I have a tendency to comment as the video goes on, otherwise I'll forget. So it really just sort of absorbs most of my free time. So there's that. But to be honest, even before YouTube, doing game prep work didn't really appeal to me all that much. I would more like to just show up and just do the best I can. There have been times, though, I will be honest, where I sat down and the game wasn't as good as it probably could have been with prep work. There's pros and cons with everything. It's the time. I think the time factor is another reason why I tend to improv dialogue. I never write dialogue, ever. I will have an idea about some of the NPCs sometimes, but again, sometimes I pull those out of my ass. They come out of nowhere. Here's a rabbit out of my hat. I think that also, because if you script out dialogue, and like I think Ander was saying, and the players interrupt them or shoot them in the face with a crossbow bolt, there goes your, however long you spent writing that dialogue, that character's dead. You might as well just throw it out the window, so it's the wasted time of prep work that I think bothers me. It's just, time is a valuable commodity to me, so I don't want to waste it doing things that aren't going to be used. So I talked about brainstorming, listening to what is said at the table, incorporating the best ideas that come about from playing, from that, play testing the prep, or however you want to call it. Some other things, too, about inspiration. Getting enough sleep. If you are, well, I guess there's something to be said about not getting enough sleep, too, but we'll start with getting enough sleep. If you are rested, you have food, you're not hungry, you got food at the table, so you can, munch as you go, I think that really helps with improvisation. Sometimes if you're tired or just a little bit tired, it doesn't seem to flow as smooth. So keep that in mind. Also, if you have, let's say you got 2 or 4 hours of sleep, it was a rough night. You had lots of nightmares, or you just worked or something. That can also benefit improvisational GMing, because you can come out with some strange ideas because you're just delusional from lack of sleep. But in my experience, those rare insights are outweighed by the fact that you're just miserable, tired, and it just, it just doesn't seem to flow as well. You don't have enough energy to, let the players know what you're thinking and feeling. I don't script encounters, dialogue. Sometimes I won't even stat things out. I'll roll stuff up on the fly, or I'll just pick numbers, especially in systems that are more rules light. I've talked about in the past that very crunchy systems seem to need more prep. It's harder to make NPCs on the fly, so that's why I like more, just smaller rule sets that are easier to learn, so I don't have to look up book information, unless it's like monster stats or what does that spell do, things like that. The Gentleman Gamer talked about it's more exciting for him to make it up as he goes, and I agree with that statement. I agree with that a lot. I think Nero's Fiddle, he's a newer person that I've subscribed to. Him and I have very similar tastes in the way we do things. While we like to prep some things, other things we wouldn't even imagine prepping. We want to do that stuff at the table. Sometimes I'll have a basic outline, but I've never really run a set adventure path, or unless it's a one-shot at a convention where your time is limited. Other than that, I really won't do anything like that. And even when I run a standard module, I ad-lib a lot and I'll skip entire sections. And if the players come up with solutions that aren't in the module that basically kick the module's ass, I let it happen. You know, reward creativity. See, I think I did most of everything. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I agree with the Gentleman Gamer's idea that this is improved dramatics or improv theater, and I totally agree with that. You know, whose line is it anyway? That kind of thing, where the players are going to throw things at you that you never saw coming, and you need to be able to, you know, creep around on your toes and figure out what you're going to do. It's like, ah! And another thing with improv GMing, don't be afraid to take breaks. Even if you disguise that break as, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Or, okay, everyone, you know, go get a smoke, or, you know, go grab something to eat or something like that. If you're really stumped, there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, I need a break. The players take breaks all the time. I think that's pretty much what all I wanted to say. So I think I'm mostly an improv GM, but I do some prep as well. But I definitely lean more towards improv. All right, guys, thanks for watching.